Then the doctor came out. He came to see those looking for the little girl. Doctor, how is my daughter? Where is she? Can I see her? The doctor was asked by Elena in tears. Yes, doctor, can we see our daughter? That was when the doctor realized that those standing in front of him were the parents of the little girl. I'm so sorry. Are you the parents of the little girl? The doctor asked, shifting his gaze from Elena to Marcus. Yes, we are, Marcus and Elena answered, anxiously and nodding their heads. Sorry to break this sad news to you then. Your daughter was involved in a serious accident, which nearly took her life. When she was rushed here, she was bleeding from her head. I had thought that was all, till I decided to examine her scrupulously, and I found out she had an internal brain bleeding. My daughter has an internal bleeding? Where is she? Where is my daughter? I want to see her, please, Elena asked with tears rolling down her cheeks. The doctor heaved a sigh and continued, Man, she needed to be operated to stop the bleeding completely. I had given her some drugs and injections to keep the blood from flowing. Our hospital doesn't have the necessary equipment for the surgery. The man who had brought her here decided he would take Sophia to a big city so that she can be treated. Which city? Which city, doctor? Do you have his number? I don't know the city he lives in, neither do I have his number, the doctor said in a disappointing tone. Elena turned slowly, looked at her husband, and then fell down and fainted. They tried immediately to revive her in the hospital. When Elena woke up, all she did was cry bitterly, asking for her only child. Why me? Why Sophia? After 5 years, God, after 5 years you sent Sophia to me. Why this huge temptation? Where is my Sophia? Where is my Sophia? Elena kept saying in tears loudly. Marcus tried to hold himself. His charming princess was on the verge of death, and no one even knew where she was. He held his wife and tried consoling her. Elena refused to go home. She wanted her daughter to be brought back to her. The headmistress and the teacher couldn't go home either. They just looked at the couple who were in pains and couldn't help keeping their tears back. It was getting dark already, and they needed to go back home. Marcus convinced Elena to follow him back home. The headmistress begged Marcus not to take out his anger on their school, as they would put their hands together to looking for Sonia. Marcus wasn't in the mood to start causing havoc. He just wanted to take his wife home, because she has not been herself. Going after the school was not going to bring back his daughter. He solemnly blamed himself and hoped the man bring back his daughter alive to them. Back to Jack. He was speeding a lot, and when he was stopped by the police, he showed them the report written by the doctor, coupled with the note, and they let him pass. He drove for hours and finally got to the city. It was already dark, but he drove straight to the hospital. He gave them the note the doctor has given to him. Sophia was quickly taken into the theater while Jack made the necessary payments. The surgeon was called, and luckily he was still in the hospital too. He had wanted to leave a while ago, but it was as if something kept him back. He immediately went to see Sophia. Jack was in the waiting room. He was praying and hoping Sophia would come out safe. He kept pacing around and rubbing his hands on his head. His phone kept vibrating in his pocket. He brought it out, and it was his wife Lisa calling. She had called him so many times and he never picked. He picked up the call, and his wife asked him why he wasn't back home yet, after telling her hours ago that he was on his way home. Jack explained everything to his wife. She asked where he was so she would come immediately. It took a few minutes, then Lisa arrived at the hospital. She went and met her husband, where he was seated and sweating. She asked him how it all happened, and he told her. Lisa was concerned. She decided to wait with her husband for the outcome on the ongoing surgery. The surgery took a very long time. Once in a while, the nurse would come out and then go back into the theater. Jack and Lisa kept sleeping and waking up at intervals in the hospital waiting room. They earnestly wanted Sophia to be healed. Time was crawling, but finally the doctor came out. He was wearing a smile on his face. Jack was the first to see the doctor. He tried standing up and Lisa, who was sitting beside him, woke up too. Doctor, how is she? Hope the surgery was successful. Jack asked the doctor anxiously. By the grace of God and not us, the little girl is safe and out of danger. Yes, the surgery was successful, the doctor replied. Yes, oh, thank God, Jack said out loud, while his wife hugging him happily. Please bring down your voices, the doctor said in a low tone. Okay, okay, Jack said. The doctor continued. She needs a lot of resting time. She's likely to lose a part of her memory, which will only come back with time, by God's grace. Also, she may not be able to talk well for a while. I have given some list of drugs to the nurse. You get them and make sure she takes them as prescribed. She really needs a lot of love and care from you both to get well soon. Can we see her now? Lisa asked softly. Sure, but she needs no disturbance. She needs maximum rest, the doctor said and walked out. The couple thanked the doctor and walked into the hospital room immediately. Lisa walked into the room and set her eyes on Sophia. Streams of tears ran down her cheeks. She started sobbing bitterly while Jack tried to console her. Meanwhile, back at Marcus and Elena's home, Marcus stopped a taxi which would take him and his wife back home. He kept consoling her as they drove back home together. When they got home, Marcus began to make calls, creating awareness that his daughter was missing. He wanted to go to the police station, but he couldn't leave his wife all alone in the condition she was in. Elena sat on the chair in the living room, feeling so weak. It felt as if she had just lost part of herself. She wondered why such a heavy temptation would come to her. She couldn't blame her husband. She knew it wasn't intentional on his side. But she wondered why all these days it should be the same day that traffic would hold her up. If only there was no traffic, she might have gotten to the school before Sonia met with the accident. Elena stood up slowly, then she walked towards her room in slow steps after wiping her tears. Where are you going to, Elena? Marcus asked, looking at his wife. Elena just shook her head from left to right and kept walking towards her room. She entered her room and knelt down beside her bed. Father, I know you won't let anything happen to the only child you've given me. I know you will heal her even though she is not here with me. Whatever hospital she has been taken to, let her be healed because I trust in you, Lord. In the name of Jesus, amen. Marcus responded loudly. Elena turned and looked at him. He had followed her into the room. Marcus consoled his wife. They had no appetite for food. He took his wife to the bedroom and helped her take a shower. After they were done, they retired to bed. Both Marcus and Elena couldn't find sleep, as lots of questions kept running through their minds. Who had taken Sophia? Why did he leave for another hospital with Sophia without their consent? Was Sophia really safe out there? How would they get to see their only daughter again? Back at the hospital with Jack and Lisa, Lisa started sobbing bitterly as she saw the condition of Sophia. Jack held his wife and took her out of the room. The doctor had warned them not to disturb Sophia to avoid any complication. Years ago, when Jack got married to Lisa, Lisa got pregnant for the first time. The couple were so happy for their incoming child. It took only a few weeks and Lisa had a miscarriage. She cried because she couldn't tell what actually caused the miscarriage. She took in again. This time, she tried being careful and avoided everything the doctor told her to avoid. Finally, she gave birth to a baby boy. Jack and Lisa were so happy. They called their little boy Oliver. After the birth of Oliver, the doctor came with sad news that Lisa won't be able to take him anymore due to some complications which she had. Jack and Lisa were not that worried because they had gotten their bundle of joy, and they never wanted many children in the first place. Oliver grew into a very smart child. He was admired by many because of how intelligent he was. He became his parents' pride. As time went by, Oliver fell sick. He was taken to the hospital for treatment, and after some treatment, he got better. After a few weeks, he got sick again. He was once again taken to the same hospital, and he got better. It suddenly became a habit for Oliver to fall sick after every week. It didn't disturb Jack and Lisa that much because they had money to buy drugs for their son. Oliver then began to lose weight, and his sickness became so serious. That was when Lisa suggested that they change to another hospital. Jack agreed, and Oliver was taken to another hospital. When they got to the hospital, a doctor was called because of how serious Oliver's case was. After much checkup with the doctor, he called the couple into his office, leaving Oliver lying on the hospital bed. The doctor told Jack and Lisa that their son had leukemia, blood cancer. He told them that leukemia was controllable and treatable in children, but Oliver's case had reached its peak and he could die any moment. He advised Jack and his wife to go and spend their last moments with their son. Lisa cried her eyes out in the doctor's office. Then she went with Jack to go and see their son. When they arrived, Oliver was just staring at his parents with his eyes partly open. The couple tried their best to hide their tears. Oliver smiled at his mother while holding her tight. Suddenly, Lisa could feel Oliver's grip loosen up. She looked at her son and realized that Oliver was gone. She shook him vigorously, trying to wake him up, but he was really gone. Jack stood looking at his son, and tears ran down his cheeks, while Lisa hugged Oliver, crying her eyes out. Looking at Sophia, who was lying down with bandages, made Lisa remember how her son had given up the ghost on a hospital bed while smiling at her. Who knows? Who knows if she's the only one her parents have, just like us? How would they cope without their daughter? Lisa asked her husband in tears. Tomorrow morning, I will go back and look for her parents, using the name on the school uniform, Jack said, still consoling his wife. The next morning, Marcus woke up. He sat on his bed thinking of how he was going to find his only daughter. He decided he was going to go to the police station and lay a complaint about his missing daughter. A call came through his phone. It was from the proprietress of the school. She was calling to plead for forgiveness and assure him that the school was going to help and make sure Sophia is brought back to him. Marcus knew that those words would come because she was afraid of losing her school. He only wanted his daughter to be found and nothing more, so he left for the police station to lay a complaint about his missing daughter. The police assured Marcus that they would try their best to bring his daughter back to him. By the time Marcus came back from the police station, he wanted to go to work, but on second thought, he decided to go back home and be with his wife. He got back home and discovered that the door was open. She had asked Elena to shut the door behind him. Marcus opened the door slowly to know why the door was still left open. Back at the hospital, Jack went back to where Sophia was lying with his wife Lisa. She hadn't moved ever since the surgery was done. She lay still with the white clothes she was changed into, and the bandage on her head had a slight stain of blood. The couple just sat on an empty bed opposite where Sophia lay. She's so beautiful, beautiful and adorable, Lisa said, hugging her husband as they stared at Sophia. Yes, she is. Her parents must be lucky to have her. Thank God the operation was successful, Jack said with a smile. He looked at his watch and the time said 2 minutes past 1 a.m. I think you need to go back home and rest, my dear. You have to be at work early, remember, Jack said to his wife. Lisa tapped her phone and saw that it was early morning already. She told her husband that she wouldn't be able to find sleep if she went back to the house. Jack tried persuading his wife, but she wanted to stay with him and Sophia. He felt the way Lisa just kept staring at Sophia with so much love. As time went by, Lisa slept off on her husband's lap, while Jack leaned on the wall sitting on the bed. The reflection of the early morning sun found its way into the room where Jack and his wife were. Noises of people moving around inside the hospital woke Jack and Lisa up. They were tired. The first thing they did was to check on Sophia. She was still sleeping and had not yet opened her eyes. Jack left the room and went to get the nurse that was attending to Sophia. He asked for the uniform that Sophia was putting on earlier before they had her clothes changed. The nurse gave the uniform to Jack. He went outside and placed the uniform perfectly on the back of his seat. After staring at Sophia for a while, Lisa left the hospital room. She was already running late for work. She left Jack in the hospital and let Jack give the nurse some tip and asked her to look after Sophia. Then he left the hospital and went towards his car. Something surprised Jack. He had 2 flat tires. He never noticed it when he had come to keep Sophia's uniform. He had just one spare tire, so he decided to walk down the road to get help. Few minutes later, Jack came back with someone and his tire was changed. It was time for him to travel back to the city where he had knocked Sophia down to look for her parents. As Jack approached the city, something strange happened. He turned to pick up the uniform, which he had placed perfectly at the back of his car, but to his greatest bewilderment, the uniform wasn't there anymore. Jack stepped on his brakes immediately. He decided to clear off the road and search for the uniform. Well, he parked his car and came down. He searched for the uniform, but it was nowhere to be found. Jack stood for a while, wondering what was going on. First, his tires were deflated. Now, all of a sudden, the uniform he had placed at the back of his car seat was there no more. If his wife said she did not take out the uniform from the back of the seat, then who did? Jack had called his wife. She was with her best friend in the office. Lisa's friend Cynthia had come to visit Lisa. At her workplace, she asked her why her husband would be asking about a school uniform. Have you adopted a child? Without letting me know. Me, your best friend, Cynthia, the story of how her husband had knocked down a girl after he had gone to visit someone in another city. Cynthia was touched by all Lisa just told her from the description that Lisa made the little girl was about the age of Oliver, and she knew that the incident would definitely make Lisa remember the dead son, Oliver. I will really like to see this little girl, Cynthia said, with so much concern in her face. Lisa told her that they would be leaving in the next 30 minutes to go see the girl in the hospital and know if she had woken up. Back at Sophia's house, her father Marcus, who had just come back from the police station after reporting about his missing daughter, met the door to his house open. He warned his wife earlier to shut the doors, but he was surprised to find the door open. Marcus opened the door slowly, and his wife was not in the sitting room, and the whole place was so quiet. He bolted the door behind him and went further into his room, but his wife was not there. He went to Sophia's room and slowly opened the door. There he saw Elena on the floor and just looking at Sophia's clothes that were on her little wall hanger. Then she took Sophia's teddy bear and held it tightly to herself as streams of tears ran down her cheeks. Marcus was so broken, seeing the state of his wife was in. He went towards her and consoled her tightly. Elena never knew her husband was already back. She held the teddy bear tight and the tears ran down her cheeks. He then lifted his wife from the floor where she was seated. He wiped Elena's tears with his hands. What did the police say? Did they find her? Will they find my Sophia? Elena asked. I just reported the case, my dear. I know the police will do their best to find our baby. Marcus answered, trying to give hope to his wife. What if Sophia didn't make it out of the operation room? What if that was the reason why the man who knocked her down didn't come to look for us? Elena began to ask, again as tears started all over to roll down her cheeks. Don't be pessimistic, Elena. We will find our daughter and she will be okay, Marcus said, trying to be a carrier of hope for himself and his wife. Go and freshen up. We will eat out and then we'll go to the hospital and wait for the man. Hopefully, he may come back to the hospital, Marcus said to his wife. Few minutes later, Elena was done with the shower. She wore her clothes and then left the house with her husband. They arrived at an eatery to eat, but Elena had no appetite. Any little girl that passed looked like Sophia in her eyes. Elena didn't have the appetite to eat, so Marcus packaged some food and took it with him. He left for the hospital with Elena because they wanted to know if the man has stopped by. Back at the road, Jack kept wondering what was actually going on. He knew his wife too well, and she wasn't the type of woman to tell lies. But he wondered who else would have taken the uniform. He had already made up his mind to look for Sophia's parents, and he wasn't going to stop halfway. He knew what both him and his wife had gone through when they lost their only son, Oliver. He needed to find the parents of the little girl, either uniform or no uniform. I'm going to look for the parents of that little girl. Who knows what they are going through? Jack said and entered into his car. He started driving into the city and towards the direction of the accident scene. But the more he drove, the more confused he got. He couldn't actually identify the scene where the accident has taken place because he was in a haste. The first place he stopped and asked questions, it seemed like he was at the wrong place because there was no accident recorded there yesterday. Time was speeding by and Jack needed to find the girl's parents. He thought about going to the police station, but then another thought came to his mind. He thought it right to go back to the hospital where he has taken Sophia to. He knew the hospital so well because it was by the roadside. Perhaps Sophia's parents may have come there in search of their daughter. So he went back into his car and drove towards the hospital. Lisa picked up her car keys and left for the hospital with Cynthia. Cynthia asked Lisa who would have taken the uniform her husband had called her earlier about. Lisa said to her no idea because she never touched the uniform. It felt strange to Cynthia, but she decided not to talk about it. When they both got to the hospital, Lisa took Cynthia to the ward where Sophia was kept. Sophia was still lying motionless on the bed with bandage on her head. What a cute little girl. I wonder what her parents are going through, Cynthia said, with a mix of countenance. All I want is for her to get better, Lisa said, holding Sophia's hand and trying to smile. She could feel the little girl's finger forming a grip on her hand. I think she's finally awake, Lisa said, feeling so much happiness. Both her and Cynthia focused on the little girl, waiting for her to open her eyes. Suddenly, the little girl's grip on Lisa loosened and she started jiggling like someone going through a seizure. Lisa got really scared. Doctor, doctor, Lisa called out, running out of the hospital room. A nurse came running towards her direction to know what the problem was. Lisa told the nurse that Sophia suddenly started shaking. The nurse asked another nurse to go and call the doctor while she ran in to go see Sophia. Luckily, the doctor was around and he came quickly to see the condition of Sophia. Cynthia and Lisa was asked to step outside while he attended to Sophia. Lisa went outside immediately and called her husband on the phone. She told him that it seemed Sophia's problem was getting worse and she was so scared of what was going to happen next. Jack had already arrived at the hospital. He came down from his car and was about to lock his car up when a call came into his phone. From the way his wife sounded, he felt as if the surgery was done with complications. He became so worried and couldn't bring himself to go into the hospital. He entered back into his car. After a few minutes, Jack called his wife on the phone, asking if there was any news about the little girl. His wife told him that the doctor was still inside with Sophia and no news yet. She was almost in tears. Lots of questions started popping up inside Jack's head. What if the surgery wasn't successful? What if the little girl dies? Will you tell her parents? What compensation do you think your money can give? Can your money replace their dead child? Do you think they will let you go scot-free? As the questions kept racing through Jack's head, he suddenly became scared. He knew finding the girl's parents was the right thing to do, but he couldn't bear looking them in the eyes and telling them that their child is dead in case something went wrong. Jack reversed his car around and left the hospital. He was going back to where he came from. Whoever you guys are, I am so sorry. I promise to do my best and make your daughter get well. I pray she gets well and I will return her to you. I promise. Jack said out loud as he drove out.